The rain hammered down on the cracked pavement as Maria pushed her squeaking shopping cart through the darkened alley behind Fifth Avenue's luxury apartments. At 43, her hands were calloused from years of collecting bottles and cans, her face weathered by nights spent searching through New York's forgotten corners. But her eyes, those deep brown eyes, still held a stubborn spark of kindness that 10 years of homelessness hadn't extinguished. She was about to pass the dumpster behind the Ashford building when she heard it, a weak, rattling cough that barely rose above the sound of the storm. Maria froze. In her years on the streets, she'd learned that some sounds you couldn't ignore, no matter how tired you were or how cold the rain felt seeping through your worn jacket. Peering behind the dumpster, her flashlight revealed a sight that made her gasp. A man in an expensive suit lay crumpled against the brick wall, his silver hair matted with blood, his breathing shallow and labored. His face was pale as moonlight, lips tinged blue. A gold watch on his wrist caught the beam of her light. Patek Philippe, worth more than she'd seen in a lifetime. Sir, can you hear me? Maria knelt beside him, her heart pounding. The man's eyelids fluttered. Up close, she could see he was older, maybe 70, with distinguished features that spoke of a life far removed from alley trash and rain. Help me, he whispered, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Maria's mind raced. She had no phone. The nearest hospital was 8 blocks away. She looked at the watch again, then at his designer shoes. She could take them, sell them, eat for months. Nobody would ever know. The thought came and went in an instant, leaving shame in its wake. I've got you, she said firmly, making her decision. Stay with me. With strength born of desperation, Maria half dragged, half carried the man to the street. She flagged down a taxi, and when the driver hesitated at her appearance, she pulled out her entire day's earnings, $12.35, and threw it through the window. Presbyterian Hospital. Now, this man is dying. Something in her voice made the driver open the door. At the emergency room, chaos erupted. Nurses rushed the man away on a gurney while a security guard questioned Maria. She answered honestly, telling them where she'd found him, giving them everything in his wallet that she'd grabbed, credit cards, identification. The name on his driver's license read, Richard Ashford 3. You can go now, the guard said dismissively, already turning away. Maria nodded, suddenly exhausted. She walked back into the rain, her cart abandoned somewhere in the chaos, her money spent on the taxi. She'd saved a man's life, and somehow she felt poorer than ever. That night, she slept in a doorway, shivering, wondering if she'd done the right thing or just been a fool. 3 days passed. Maria returned to her routine, collecting cans, avoiding trouble, trying to forget the man in the alley. But on the 4th day, as she sorted through a recycling bin, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. A woman in a tailored suit emerged, looking completely out of place among the trash and graffiti. Maria Santos, the woman asked. Maria straightened, suspicious. Who's asking? My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm Mr. Ashford's attorney. He's been looking for you. He wants to thank you for saving his life. Maria's throat tightened. Is he okay? He's recovering. He had a massive heart attack in that alley. The doctors said if you hadn't gotten him to the hospital when you did, he would have died within the hour. Jennifer's expression softened. Will you come with me? Please. He's been quite insistent. The penthouse suite at Mount Sinai Hospital looked more like a 5-star hotel than a medical facility. Richard Ashford sat propped up in bed, looking far better than when Maria had last seen him, though still frail. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, locked onto her the moment she entered. You, he said, his voice hoarse but steady. You're the angel who saved me. Maria shifted uncomfortably. I'm no angel, Mr. Ashford. I just couldn't leave you there. Richard, please. He gestured to a chair beside his bed. Sit. Jennifer, give us some privacy. When they were alone, Richard studied her for a long moment. Do you know who I am? The ID said Richard Ashford. That's the building you were behind, so I figure you live there. Pretty fancy place. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. I own that building, and 47 others across Manhattan. I built a real estate empire over 50 years. I'm what people call a multimillionaire, though the exact numbers are somewhat higher. He paused, pain flickering across his face. not physical, Maria sensed, but something deeper. I'm also completely alone. The story spilled out slowly. Richard had devoted his entire life to business, sacrificing his marriage, relationships with his 2 children, and every friendship along the way. His wife had died 5 years ago, never forgiving him for choosing board meetings over her chemotherapy appointments. His son and daughter hadn't spoken to him in over a decade, each having given up trying to reach a father who only saw them as disappointments for not joining his company. That night, I'd had dinner with my lawyers, finalizing my will. Everything goes to charity, strangers who'll use my name on buildings but never knew me. His eyes grew wet. I was walking home when my chest seized. I collapsed behind my own building, and do you know who walked past me? My doorman, my concierge, people I've employed for years. They saw me and assumed I was just another drunk homeless person. They kept walking. Maria's chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't name. But you stopped. You, who had nothing, gave everything to save me. Richard reached for her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. Why? Maria thought about her answer carefully. I used to be a nurse, she said quietly. 20 years ago, before everything fell apart. My daughter got sick, leukemia. I lost my job taking care of her, lost our apartment, lost my savings to medical bills. She died anyway. After that, I just couldn't find my way back. But I guess some part of me still remembers what it means to help people. To see someone suffering and not look away. Tears rolled down Richard's weathered cheeks. I'm so sorry. Me too. They sat in silence, 2 broken people from opposite worlds, connected by one rainy night. I want to help you, Richard said finally. I want to give you money, an apartment, whatever you need. Maria pulled her hand back. I don't want your money, Mr. Ashford. Richard, that's not why I helped you. I know that. That's precisely why I want to help. He leaned forward intensely. Please, let me do something good with what I have left. Let me try to be better than I've been. Over the following weeks, as Richard recovered, a strange friendship formed. Maria visited daily, at first reluctantly accepting small gestures, a hotel room, some clothes, meals. But more than the material help, they talked. Really talked. Maria shared stories of her life before homelessness, her dreams of nursing, her daughter's laugh. Richard spoke of building his empire, the loneliness of the top, the regrets that haunted him. I pushed everyone away because I thought success meant never needing anyone, he confessed one afternoon. I thought vulnerability was weakness. Now I'm old and rich and realize I've been bankrupt. All along in the ways that matter. Maria understood. I pushed people away too, after Elena died. I was so angry at the world, at God, at myself. It was easier to disappear than to let anyone see my pain. We're not so different, you and me. Perhaps that's why you could see me when others couldn't, Richard said thoughtfully. We recognize our own. 1 month after the heart attack, Richard made a proposal that shocked everyone, especially his lawyers and estranged children. He wanted to start a foundation, not just another charity bearing his name, but something real. He wanted to create a program that provided housing, job training, and support for people experiencing homelessness, with a focus on those with medical or caregiving backgrounds who'd fallen through society's cracks. I want you to run it, he told Maria. You understand what people need because you've lived it. You have medical knowledge, compassion, and something I never had, the ability to truly see people. Richard, I've been on the streets for 10 years. I have no credentials anymore, no. You have the only credential that matters. You saved my life when you had every reason not to. You're the most qualified person I know. Maria wanted to refuse, terrified of the responsibility of failing again. But as she looked at this lonely man who'd given her back something she'd lost, not just shelter and security, but purpose, she found herself nodding. The Ashford Foundation launched 6 months later. Maria, with Richard's support and extensive training, became its director. They started small, opening a residence facility for 20 people, providing not just beds but comprehensive support, medical care, mental health services, job training, and perhaps most importantly, dignity. The first resident was a former teacher who'd lost everything caring for her disabled partner. The second was a veteran with PTSD. The third was a young man who'd aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. Maria knew all their names, all their stories. She hired staff who'd experienced homelessness themselves, who understood that people didn't need judgment, they needed help and hope. Richard threw himself into the project with an energy that worried his doctors but revived his spirit. He attended every board meeting, met every resident, and for the first time in decades, felt like his money meant something beyond numbers in accounts. But the real miracle came on a spring morning when Richard's daughter, Catherine, appeared at the foundation unannounced. She'd read about it in the newspaper, had seen her father's name attached to something genuinely meaningful instead of just another luxury development. "Dad," she said uncertainly when she found him in the community room, playing chess with a resident. Richard looked up, and Maria watched his face transform with a mixture of hope, fear, and desperate love. "Catherine, I wanted to see what you were doing here. If it was real." Catherine's voice wavered. "If you were really different." "I'm trying to be," Richard said quietly. "I know I failed you. Failed your brother. Failed your mother. I can't undo that, but I'm trying to be better. It's late, but I'm trying." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Mom would have liked this. What you're doing here. Your mother should have been proud of me for being a good father and husband. She wasn't, because I wasn't. But maybe," he stood, suddenly looking his age and frail again. "Maybe it's not too late to be someone my family could be proud of." They didn't embrace, not yet. The wounds were too deep for instant healing. But Catherine stayed for hours, touring the facility, meeting residents, and watching her father interact with genuine warmth and humility. She saw Maria, too, the woman who'd somehow cracked open her father's frozen heart. Before leaving, Catherine pulled Maria aside. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what you did, but you gave me my father back." "He saved me too," Maria replied honestly. "More than he knows." The foundation grew. 1 residence became 3, then 5. Maria developed programs that other cities began to replicate. She spoke at conferences, sharing her journey from homeless to housed, from hopeless to hopeful. She never forgot where she'd come from, and neither did Richard. On the foundation's 2nd anniversary, Richard gathered Maria and the staff for an announcement. His health had declined again. The heart attack had done permanent damage, but his eyes were bright. 2 years ago, I was dying alone behind my own building, and a woman with nothing gave me everything. Not just life, but a reason to live. He looked at Maria. "You taught me that wealth isn't about accumulation, it's about circulation. Love, help, compassion, they only matter when they move through us to others." He revealed his updated will. The bulk of his estate would fund the foundation in perpetuity. His children, reconciled with him now through years of genuine effort, had agreed. They'd found their father again and wanted his legacy to reflect the man he'd become, not the man he'd been. "Every person we help, every life we change, that's my real fortune," Richard said. "Not the buildings with my name, but the people who get second chances because Maria refused to let me die in the trash." Maria spoke then, her voice steady despite her emotions. "I used to think I'd lost everything. My daughter, my career, my home, my hope. I thought saving you was just one good deed in a terrible life. But you showed me that our lowest moments can become our greatest purposes." We were both dying in different ways that night. We both got saved. Richard died peacefully 18 months later, surrounded by his children, grandchildren he'd finally met, and Maria. His last words were, "Tell the residents they're all my family now. Take care of them." At his funeral, the chapel overflowed, not just with business associates and society figures, but with dozens of people whose lives had been transformed by the foundation. Former residents who now had jobs, homes, and futures. Staff members who'd found purpose. Catherine and her brother David spoke of a father who'd learned late but learned well that love mattered more than ledgers. Maria gave the final eulogy, standing before the crowd with the same strength that had lifted a dying man from behind a dumpster. Richard Ashford was a complicated man who spent most of his life getting things wrong. But when it mattered most, when he had a choice between staying the same or changing, he chose change. He chose growth. He chose love. She paused, looking at all the faces, rich and poor, housed and formerly homeless, family and strangers who'd become family. "He taught me that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. That our worst moments can birth our best selves. That sometimes you have to die to the person you were to live as the person you can be. She touched the small pin on her lapel. A gift from Richard, designed to look like a trashy alley transformed into a garden. He found life in the trash. I found purpose. Together, we found redemption. The Ashford Foundation continued to flourish under Maria's leadership. Catherine joined the board, bringing fresh ideas and honoring her father's memory by being present in ways he'd taught her mattered most. They expanded services, helped thousands, changed policies, and shifted conversations about homelessness from judgment to compassion. Years later, Maria still walked through the facilities, knowing every resident's name. Sharing meals, listening to stories. She never forgot the cold rain, the desperate choice, the moment when stopping to help seemed foolish but proved to be salvation. Sometimes, late at night, she'd stand in the alley behind the Ashford building, now adorned with a small plaque marking where Richard had collapsed, and remember. Two broken people, one rainy night, one choice that changed everything. She'd learned the most profound truth of her life. That we're never too lost to be found, never too broken to heal, and never too poor to be rich in the ways that matter. Sometimes the people we save end up saving us. Sometimes the trash we're thrown into becomes the soil where miracles grow. And sometimes, just sometimes, kindness is the greatest fortune we can ever give or receive.